Merry Christmas, you filthy freaking animals. Let's hit it. We got an exciting one coming today. MP5 SD in 22 long rifle for those who are curious, which is a new offering from HK, and I like to think a great Christmas gift because it ties nicely into holiday films such as Die Hard. You're a fan of Die Hard. He's a fan of Christmas Story, actually, because every year he's scared to death that Ralphie is going to shoot out his eye. But that's not what we're talking about. It is Christmas week, and we hope that you guys are having a nice Christmas week, making some ham or whatever. But we're going to be talking about what sort of properties will either sort of qualify or disqualify for FHA or VA financing. Now, this is per a client that we're working with now several clients that we're working with now who are VA clients. And this is something that will come up with whether you are doing a VA loan or an FHA loan, right? Both of those are federally backed loans. So when Uncle Sam gets involved, typically things get a little bit more complicated. So we're going to be talking about what sort of properties should you be considering, not be considering, because here's the deal. Where are we at here? Oh, yeah. So cash, either properties that you're buying cash, which is not a lot of people, right? It's a pretty small percentage, or doing conventional financing of, you have a lot of flexibility because there's really no stipulations that say like, hey, if there's mold in the house, you can't get this. It's like, no, I mean, if you want to take it on, sure, knock yourself out, right? A lot of people that even do, just to prove a point, that do, sort of fix and flip properties, well, they pay for them with conventional financing until the point where they maybe build up enough cash that they pay cash for it. But they do it with conventional financing because the reality is the lender really doesn't care. They're like, look, if you want to take on the problem child of this house and flip it, then sure, go for it. So conventional cash deals, those are your friend whenever possible. Of course, if you're a veteran, depending on how long you were in and all that kind of stuff, you'll have access to a VA loan. A lot of first-time buyers are going to use an FHA loan. So the deal is, it's a different animal. Why is it a different animal? Because, like I said, Uncle Sam's involved. As soon as you have the Fed tied into your loan, well, they care what kind of property it is because they're on the hook for it, right? So to give you an example, recent VA client, we plugged in his search criteria. We had 37 listings. Okay, now that was really between condos and townhouses, right? We have within the budget and the general like location radius and a couple little things that were important. We had 37 listings. That's kind of the sweet spot. That's right about what I hope to see when I plug in someone's criteria. I started going through it and I was like, man, a lot of these do not say that they're VA eligible. And they would typically know that because there's an HOA subdivision tied in. We'll talk about that as we go, but it is easier because of that fact. So once I said, hey, look, only show me the properties that are VA approved, which would typically also be FHA, it went from 37 down to 10. So that's a dramatic drop to the point where I'm like, well, 10 is too few. We need more properties than 10 because it's just going to be so little inventory we're going to have to look at. So we added in single family homes to balance it out. So here's the primary thing that will get a single family home disqualified from a VA or FHA loan. And that very simply is if the house is in rough shape. So if it has safety concerns, which is very loosely interpreted, safety concerns are going to be a big thing that I'm just going to stick with the VA, even though FHA is going to be pretty similar. Safety concerns are going to be a big thing that the VA is going to flag. So if you have even things like paint chipping, a lot of times they will consider that some sort of hazard for whatever reason. I don't really know, but, and they'll be like, no, that's not going to fly. We'll talk about what your options are if you get hit with something like that. But if you have like, certainly if like the foundation is rough or something like that, if you have leaks in the roof, but any sort of safety related things, they're probably going to flag you for. If it is what we would call a quote fixer-upper, probably not going to, virtual guarantee it's not going to pass the VA. The VA appraiser, that's going to be your problem. I'm not talking about dated cabinets here, okay? I'm talking about like old stuff, like stuff that like really is problematic that needs to be fixed. Cabinet, I don't give a shit. If it's turquoise because it was from 1983 and like it looks like shit, I don't, VA doesn't care. They care if you got problems, right? So Here's the thing. On a single family home, the biggest challenge you've got is that you're not going to ultimately know if that home will pass the VA process until you hit the appraisal. And here's the problem with that. By that point, you've already paid for an inspection. You're not going to do an appraisal until you've already done an inspection. Okay? So you've already done an inspection. Well, that was probably $500, let's call it. You've already paid for the appraisal, hence why the appraiser went out there. That's probably $500-600. And you quite possibly have some earnest money that is now non-refundable. So let's just say hypothetically you got $1,000 worth of earnest money on the line. So between the 500, the 1,000, you got $2,000 that's on the line. And what's entirely possible, if it's a somewhat rough house, the VA appraiser is going to come back and they're like, hey, this will not pass like our VA standards for what we will sign off on in order for you to get the loan. Well, that's a problem because you've really got three scenarios when the appraiser goes out there. He's either going to say, you're good to go, and here's the value of the house, hopefully what you're paying for it. You're not approved, straight up, in which case that's a problem because you just lost $2,000. Or you essentially have like a conditional approval, which is, here's a list of items that need to be addressed before we will sign off on this. So at that point, you would, of course, have to go to the sellers, either take it on doing all of it yourself, or depending on how the contract is structured, go to the sellers and just say, hey, look, here's the deal. They're not going to sign off on this because the electrical is all shit, and they're afraid the house is going to burn down and the roof's got a leak, and they're going to make all these things be fixed until they will let us close on the house. At which point the sellers may say yes, they may say no, they may say we got to split it. It depends, right? Like it gets tricky. Like there is no real set rule here. Like this all gets very sort of like case by case basis situation. So my advice on this is err on the side of caution. If you're VA or FHA and you're looking at single family homes, err on the side of caution. If you're looking through the photos online, or you're there in person and you're like, man, I don't know. Like, I don't know if this thing will pass a VA inspection appraisal. And you're going to have to rely on your agent for that. Because you as the buyer, chances are you're not going to know. This isn't what you do for a living. Like you're an electrician or whatever. Well, electrician might actually be helpful in this case. But you're a whatever the hell you are. Like, you don't know. That's our job, right? So you need to lean on your agent to go, what do you think, Todd? Classic realtor name. What will this thing pass the VA? And Todd, he's got his khakis and his loafers and shit on. He's going to be like, well, I don't know. And he's going to give you his best advice. So err on the side of caution. If it seems rough and I'm going, I don't know, man. I don't know if this thing's going to pass. Err on the side of caution. Do not make an offer on that house. That's my advice. You do you, but that's my advice. Condos, townhouses, a little bit of a different story because with condos and townhouses, in virtually every case that I can think of, I mean, I can't think of an alternative to this. You have an HOA in like a project subdivision, that kind of thing. And typically you can look up that project subdivision HOA, right? Whatever term we're going to throw on it. And you can look up whether that project is approved with the VA, FHA, or not. Now, typically, at least this is what I do. Maybe it's laziness, but I think this is how it has to work, is you're going to need to tell your lender, hey, Brant, like we're going to look at this house, like, or we want to look at this house. Is it VA approved? Yes or no. He can look it up and he can say, yes, that's VA approved. You should go look at it, or no, it's not. Don't waste your time. So the tricky thing about this is if I recommend in your MLS search, just plug in stuff that you believe is VA approved to the best of the agent's knowledge, because you're going to weed out a lot of the dead stuff that you don't need to be burning your time on, because no one 10 times a day wants to have their phone go and be like, oh, okay, I got to look up this and see if this thing's approved in the system. Like, no one wants to do that. It's too much shit, right? Like, you know, everyone's juggling all the balls and no one has time to look up 10 properties a day to see if it's VA approved. So weed that out in the search would be my advice. But point being to all this is that condos, townhouses are a little bit easier because they can be looked up in the financing systems, however that shit works. I'm not a lender. I defer to them on that. But they can look that up and typically tell you whether it's approved or not. But again, my advice is to sort of bring it full circle, err on the side of caution. If something looks really rough, anticipate you're probably going to have a challenge getting that thing approved. And the problem is, by the time you know whether it's going to get approved or not, you already got some money on the line. It's tricky, man. Like all this stuff. And that's why you need a team of people around you who are good at this shit. Doesn't matter if they drive a Tesla, everyone. Doesn't matter if they wear a suit. Like, this is how I dress on a day-to-day basis, right? I don't speak like normal realtors speak, and yet I know this shit. Here's my point to that. Don't fall for the BS. Like, deal with someone that knows what they're talking about. Doesn't matter what kind of bullshit they spin your way in terms of, oh, I'm a top agent because I drive a fucking Tesla. Like, who gives a shit? Top agent, by the way, doesn't mean anything. What does that mean? He's a top dog. He's a top dog. What's a top dog? What's a top dog mean? Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. Like, that's just a fake term that people use to sell you shit. You know how many scams this dog has run? By telling people that he's the top dog and he's gonna promise them XYZ return on their money if they invested with him. This dog has conned more people out of more money than you possibly believe. Also out of more pets, because this is what he does. He comes up, throw some eyes at you, and next thing you put his stupid little dog head on you like that, wag his stupid little tail, and the next thing you know, he's getting pet. So, look, guys, let's wrap this video up. This video has gotten really stupid now. I hope you guys have a good rest of the week, whatever day this comes out. We will see you next week and bring you some more exciting, thrilling, freaking real estate news. Until then, stay safe. We'll see you soon.